How are you?
Yeah, good considering, 7:30 in the morning. Only good things can happen this time of the day.
It's better than the other end of the night.
Exactly. What's the saying? Nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m.
Oh, you're rolling around in a lot more eventful worlds than I am. My mum's like dark as soon as it gets dark, which is like daylight savings
I have
is a
to
ball.
be. I don't want to be.
Thanks for joining us this morning, my man. I love it that you're up nice and early. We've got a fair few listeners that have just jumped on now because they're always very excited to see our 7:30 guest.
Deadly.
What have you been up to over COVID, man? You're a muso. You got a few hats, which is a great thing usually through COVID because you can hopefully bounce through a few things. What have you been up to over the last 12 months to a year in terms of touring, stopping? Tell us about Yenna Werna, but where did you head when COVID kicked off?
Yeah, so it was actually funny. We played, with Baker Boy, we played Adelaide Fringe Festival. And then the weekend after that, we're supposed to be playing a festival in Perth. And all the news things started to come out and people started to talk, and our tour manager actually said, hey, look, the night before we're flying to Perth, said, hey, let's all catch up for dinner. We don't really know what's happening and everything seems a bit weird at the moment. Let's go catch up for dinner and we'll go-karting or something and just hang out for the night. And we're like, all right, Toby's been a bit weird, but that's okay, cool. Like that sounds like a great idea. We haven't caught up properly for a while, like not touring.
Yeah.
So we all went out go-karting, we had dinner, we all went home, and then we all got a text message about 1 o'clock in the morning saying, unload your suitcases, boys, everything's shut down. That's it, we're done for the year. So we lost a good 12 months of not only obviously the festival circuits in Australia, but we also lost Europe. And we lost America as well. So
this is just with Baker Boy?
That's just Baker Boy.
Wow.
That's not everything else.
Yeah, right.
2019 or whatever pre-COVID year was. I'm still trying to pick up. You talk to people, it's like, oh, last year. It's like, oh, hang on, no, the year before that.
Yeah, because last year kind of doesn't count.
It doesn't.
At times, yeah.
So let's just say last year.
The last normal year.
As the Baker Boy crew, we did I think it was around 78 shows in a year.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
So you think 52 weeks in a year, and we played 78 shows.
This is not the first time you've toured. You've did a bit of... Tell us where you started kicking off drums. I guess what was your first kit?
My first kit was a kit called it was a Dixon Tempo.
Right.
And it cost I remember it was like a $300 kit back then.
Were you like a young kid? Like give me my, like, whoever's buying your Christmas presents, give me my drum kit, or did you develop quite late into the drums world?
No, so I have really horrible ADHD.
Right.
It's disgusting even in my early mid-30s.
Yeah.
So I used to love motorbikes. My best mate had a motorbike, so I wanted a motorbike. And then one day I was out riding with my dad didn't ride, but he took me out riding, and I was attacked by a dog, and it chased me around the bloody motorbike track. After that being like 7 years or 8 years old or whatever I was like, nah, I don't want this thing. Get rid of it. I don't want a motorbike. The motorbike's not dangerous. The dog chasing me is though.
I love it.
So Dad's like, we'll sell the bike, but what do you want? And just randomly, I'm like, I want a drum kit. It's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like I want a drum kit. And of course, Mum and Dad thought, it'll be a phase. He'll be over it in 12 months, ADHD and whatever else, and he'll get rid of it and buy something new. And almost 20 years later.
There you go.
Probably longer than 20 years later, I'm still playing the damn thing.
Were you diagnosed back in whenever it was when you were a young kid? Were you diagnosed with ADHD? Was that around?
Yeah.
I'd feel like it's been a lot more accurately diagnosed recently.
100%. Back then, I very much grew up in a generation where if you couldn't concentrate, they gave you a pill. You were sad, they gave you a pill. You were too happy, they gave you a pill. So ADHD was kind of one of those unknown things. So it was, you just kind of, here's your Ritalin or your Dex or your whatever else the standard was back then. And, they just medicate you.
And your
but
grades
I'm not on any
crap.
medication. Hey,
and your grades are crap, like because like you don't get marked well for you're not.
That's just because I'm a dumbass.
You're not. Well, you can spell. You got a bit of spelling on your body, so that's good. You got any spelling mistakes on your body?
That's why I don't spell any of my tattoos. I let the tattooist do that.
Give him a little spell check just before you go on.
Yeah.
Spell rendezvous for me, please, tattoo artist, and then you can carry on with your. Oh man, it's impressive. So, what was your first professional gig?
My first professional gig. I mean, I paid first paid professional gig. I'm gonna upset a lot of musicians here, especially young musicians.
Yeah.
My first real paid professional gig after 20 years of touring was the first Baker Boy show.
What? What do you mean?
As a session drummer, because you think when you're in a band, if you're getting paid to play shows, that goes in the band kitty. That goes back into recording an album or touring or doing something. So the band members themselves don't actually make any money. Me as a musician actually getting paid where the money goes in my account and I can buy whatever I want with it was the first Baker Boy show.
No way. I am shocked.
Yeah. Sorry, all the young musicians that are expecting to write an EP and become a millionaire, but it takes a bit of work.
Wow. But you played quite heavily. What was it? Is it Slipknot or someone like was it not Slipknot? Is that like incredibly disrespectful to the band that you played?
If I played for Slipknot, I wouldn't be here doing an interview with you, I tell you.
Well, who was it? It's something I'm so hopeless with that society of music. It was someone similar vibe.
Yeah, so I played just before Baker Boy and just before playing with Philly and a couple of those lads. I was in a band called Super Heist.
Super Heist. Same thing in my
Super
world,
Heist.
mate. Clearly, they're not. It's not my space. Super Heist. Yeah, we've got a few listeners down here that live in Geelong. They've got to know who Super Heist is.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
They are a very old band though. They're kind of like my generation up and in that scene to kind of know who Super Heist were back in the day. But they were a band that inspired me to play music very early on. So when I got the call to fill in, it was a bit of a dream come true, that one.
What's the major differences from drumming from playing Super Heist to Baker Boy? Because I feel like you play like you're playing to like 100,000 people at the MCG when I see you drum for Baker Boy. I feel like, man, this guy's
I do that in front of 5 people.
Yeah. You've got... Do you have to tone it down a little bit, like moving from, say, a Super Heist gig to Baker Boy gig, or do you just still stay the same? You're just like hitting those pads hard, wild, bringing the energy, other than probably different rhythm.
With Baker Boy, I have had to tone it down a bit.
How did you find that out?
So the first couple of shows, well, first of all, I was going into hip hop, so I'm like, obviously, I need to pull back on all the really dumb stuff that I do. So I come from a punk background.
Yeah.
I light things on fire and break things and throw things, and I have multiple permanent fractures and breaks in my hands. Like that's just what I do. So obviously I couldn't jump up and do that with the clean cut Baker Boy. So I had to tone it down a little bit. I literally have one little trick up my sleeve I use for Baker Boy shows that I used to use, and that's it. That's like my only, and I stand on top of my drum kit at the start of Mariuna.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's the wildest thing I do. But if you go to some of my old bands, that was the most normal thing I did. But I did that between every song. But then would kick something over as well and hope that someone picked it back up halfway through the set. So I've done my fair share of silly stuff on stage.
You more recently you've been pretty public about your own health journey.
Yep.
You've also worked pretty heavily in that space. Was that one of your first jobs that you kind of got into outside of music? The mental health space? Were you naturally drawn to it? But it seemed like you stuck around. Tell us a little bit about some of the work that you've done prior to a couple of the gigs that you've founded lately.
Yeah, so it's the family business, funnily enough.
All right.
So I work in high-risk youth work, and I have 16 years in, I've got to check the date now, in 2 weeks.
Wow.
I've been in this industry for over 16 years. So the day I turned 18, I started working my first resi unit. So my first job was actually working at Vaca when it was on Brunswick Street, on Nicholson Street in Brunswick. And I was the receptionist when I was 16.
Yeah, right.
And I went from there into resi units. And I always said, I'm never going to be a youth worker because mum and dad do it. Nan did it. Pop did it. Great grandma did it. I don't want to do it. I don't want nothing to do with youth work. And first resi unit, 16 years, my working title got to more and more high risk clientele. And I've gone into, worked in some adult prisons and youth justice and street works and after hours crisis response stuff. And, you know, really very fragile people in high risk situations that are highly traumatized.
All First Nations communities?
No, this is anyone and everyone.
Yeah, right.
You know, there's a lot of, as you know, speaking to the choir, there's a lot of stuff that we face, a lot of people don't, but when it comes to trauma and that sort of stuff, we're all kind of in the same bucket, unfortunately. Yeah, right. So, you know, just because a black fella self-harms or a white fella self-harms, they've still got to do something about it. So I've worked in Aboriginal specific jobs before, but most of my work's been in a mainstream position.
Have you found, has anything changed? You know, as a spectator, we get fed information through stats and media, and we've got an opportunity to speak to you who's worked in, you know, the industry for, 16 years, 20 years or whatever it is. Don't want to downplay it. It's a long time. You probably, has anything changed?
Nah.
Is that quite scary? That so much money is going into these to pay services to do X. Here's the problem. Here's the service. You're the person. Everyone's getting paid, but the problem's not getting fixed. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, a lot of. So when we're looking at policies and procedures for a lot of these places and department, whatever else, like a lot of these agencies or companies or structures are still working on a very 30, 40 years ago model. So it's not. It's slowly changing. There's a new generation coming through that are trying to do the best they can, but it's resources as well. I mean, you look at, for example, we'll look at child protection, for example, like it's very easy and quick to go and grab a child protection worker and strangle them and go, you're not doing your job. But because they're so under-resourced, that child protection worker could have like 30 families that they need to work with a week.
Right.
Which is why if you ever go on Seek, they're always looking for child protection workers because it's a really crappy job. You get paid peanuts to do 5 people's job. So there's the resources as well. You know, a lot of our staff have come from those old welfare days. So we're at a position now where, you know, a lot of our management in prisons have come from Pentridge.
Right.
Like it's still that old school way. And I got to admit, I've worked with a lot of those old fellas and a lot of them are really good. But it's that new generation starting to come through and that old generation starting to wear out. So I'm kind of sitting in the middle of that and watching that. It's starting to change.
Yeah.
But we've just had to wait for that, that 10, 20 year cycle where people start to retire and the new generation starts to come in.
Is that what Yenna Werna's about creating some newer, more current, more modernized, sensitive, still traditional ways of healing?
Yeah, it's very much about a different approach to education. It's around, I guess, using the skills and knowledge that I've gained over some time to work with young people. So I do a fair few I do a lot of school talks. Like I have a talk coming up, and it's around crime and punishment. So it's a year 11 and 12 study group that are doing crime and punishment. And they want to know the aspects around, how crime and punishment's changed, but then how has that affected Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as well. So mine's very outside the box stuff. Plus I do your cultural, I don't like saying cultural awareness because it's not cultural, it's historical. So I do a cultural awareness package and little bits and pieces as well. So it's very much that kind of stuff, that education mold, and I do it in a very different way to, I guess, most people do it.
That's good. I know what you mean. You got to sometimes speak the language just to get the gig and then get in there and ruffle some feathers. So you call it cultural awareness, but you go and all right. So
Yeah, it's not cultural
that's what
awareness.
You wanted,
I'm not
but
teaching culture. Yeah.
yeah. So tell us what does Yenna Werna mean? And for the listeners at home, we've got a fair few on at the moment. I just put a Facebook link in. It's spelled Yenna Werna. Tell us a bit about the name and how did you develop this channel of yours, and what's the purpose behind it?
Yeah, so Yenna Werna is to lift us. It comes from my Kurnai language, and the whole purpose around that was around self-determination and around I'm facilitating and running programs, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's my platform or my organization. We actually all have to do this together. So how do I build programs and how do I build things where we're actually doing it all together under the one banner? So that was the whole purpose. And it's about empowerment as well. If you can empower young people to have their own self-determination, their own pathways, then that's us doing that together.
It's incredible.
Yeah, that's the basis of the name. I set it up because I did see there was a lack of there was a big gap between people with pieces of paper and people that have been on the ground. Everyone has an opinion on Facebook. No one's actually lived it. Like I talk a lot about, it's great to have an opinion and it's great to have to be angry about stuff and protest stuff and do stuff, but sometimes you need to actually come and see it as well and get a deeper understanding of some things and have when you cross that border, it's a very different world. It's a very, very different world. It's very easy to be angry and then the week later the Facebook posts disappear. And the way I actually explained it the perfect way the other day to someone, and it was like I love that we go on march, but what happens after the march? So if we go and we're talking about, let's say kids in care or deaths in custody, we have 100,000 people come to a march and 50 people walk away and actually go and do something about it and actually go and work in it, and everyone else kind of forgets about it until the next march comes along. And that's so the true, gap man. That I saw. Where's the heads on the ground? Where the people working face to face with these kids and people and adults?
So for any allies, you're spot on. The allyship just drops off. It's very event driven.
Yeah, not
day to day driven. If someone wanted to change that, and we've got some pretty woke listeners on. We're all pretty open minded, and I'd like to think we've had people listening for the last 3-4 months, so they get what we're on about here. If someone was to want to do something through their organisation, how do they go about it, and how would they sell it? I guess to their CEO, but what is it that you offer to an organisation that does need to pick up their pace in this area? Because it's a lot of the orgs with the coin and the 50 to 100 staff list. How do you approach it when you're kind of maybe cold calling, or if anyone here wants to get a hold of you and find out a bit more about what actually will you do if you come into our office?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things that I give to people that if they wanted to make some form of change, whether it's at their job or they wanted to change and do something with themselves to help. We're always looking for good youth workers, and your Cert 4 in youth work costs you nothing in Victoria. Doesn't cost you a dime to go and do it.
Wow.
Go get your Cert 4 working. You think resi, out of home care facilities and resi units are bad? Go and work in one. Change it. Go and be the worker that's actually going to do something good for those kids in there. I was always taught it's me as one single human being and not going to change a system, but it's what I do with that young person on that day that makes that difference. So it doesn't matter about the system to me. It doesn't matter. It's what I do with that person on that day for me.
Yeah.
As an organizational sense, I am very honest without being a nasty about it.
Yeah.
But it's
a fine line, isn't it? Fine line.
It is a fine line. It is a very fine line.
And you don't know where that line is.
My So empathy and respect are my two biggest values when it comes to this stuff. And I want you, because I could go in and do a cultural awareness training and make people cry. That's easy. Like that, I get paid to do that. That I can make people cry. It's not a drama. But after you finish crying, do you want to jump on the boat with me? Or are you going to go, oh, I don't want to work with him, he's just nasty. I actually need you to feel some form of empathy so you understand, you have a deeper understanding, and you actually jump on the train with me and we all ride it together. That's the whole point of what I do. But if people did want to know, I have an abundance of different types of programs and things that I can do. And I've talked to boards, I've gone over raps, I've done all this sort of stuff as well.
What do you think about raps?
I don't like them.
Why is that? Because a lot of people probably hear, and maybe even First Nations people, they might think they're doing a good thing. And it's subjective. I guess it is. Everything is kind of subjective, like to how much you have distaste for things, or you categorically said I don't like them. What don't you like rap programs and what?
Yeah, I think the foundation of rap is great, but their glory with no accountability. So I can tick all these boxes and say how I know some organisations that are on their fourth rap and they're at the very top of the tree and helping other organisations with their rap, and they still don't know how to do an acknowledgement to country. But on paper with their rap, they are the most culturally appropriate organisation in the world. So I can tick those boxes and get those statistics and look good, but no one's actually keeping me accountable to it.
For those at home, Reconciliation Action Plan. It's a template that's been pushed out through organisations and demanding that organisations pay a significant amount of time and attention to changing the landscape of their organisation by doing things with full respect and, I guess, listening to First Nations ways, whether or not it's employing more Indigenous people or listening to the people that you've already got in your organisation, but creating a change. Donating, it's not a stupid word, paying the rent, long overdue attention to using your organisation to make things different. It's it's a huge wide space. I think it's incredible that doing it 20 years, man. Where's your outlet? Is it on the kit?
Boxing bag.
You're a personal. You used to be a personal trainer too, hey? Used to be. You probably just
boxing coach.
Wow. How's that? Is that your outlet? Is that your? That's probably everyone's fear of getting involved in that space. You say go get your Cert 3 or Cert 4 and go jump in a resi. I'm sure a lot of people, after even just hearing you, and just we're well aware of what it could go like on a day in there.
Yeah. You
got to bring that stuff home, or you've got to turn the switch off. Can you switch off and go? You just said empathy. You can't switch off empathy at 5 p.m. when you're walking out of your res care or something and go, see ya. I just got to drive home and woohoo! What's on next?
So there's different levels to youth work, and I guess the type of youth work I talk about is very much a 1%er type youth work. I've worked with families, people, and in facilities that 99% of the world don't know exist. They don't know. I know youth workers that don't know half of, you have that youth work, like, oh, where have you worked? I'm like, I worked here. And so those places, they exist. I've worked there. They were the roles that I had. I've had some pretty nasty roles. I've worked a lot with suicide and self-harm and mutilation, sexual exploitation, family violence. That's kind of my bread and butter, the really, really hard stuff. But when it comes to resi and that, you can go and work in a resi unit. You can it's like any other job. You can have a bad day or you can have a good day.
Yeah.
Where my stuff is, I'm expecting to go to war every day. And am I going to walk out the same person? So it's very, very far up the tree. It's not something that most people would see on my end of the spectrum.
We've got a few comments coming in the chat line, which unfortunately you can't see. Shelley Super Heist went to a gig in Belgrave once.
Hey.
She knows. I knew someone on here would know who Super Heist is, especially Geelong, the country kids, all the outer fringe of the city. I mean,
That's it.
Did you ever play at Barwon Club?
Yes, I played Barwon Club with many bands.
Yeah. Did you play Lambs?
And the old Nash.
Oh, the Nash.
Yeah.
At the back there,
Nash.
Mate. That's a fun space. I remember that going through the teens. Squiz is also in the First Nation space. I'm trying to remain positive about the rap initiatives, but honestly, we just need the truth-telling, change in the Constitution and a treaty. Is this just another initiative to keep us all happy while the tune moves forward without us yet again?
The one way that raps do work is having an Aboriginal person within the organisation that has the safety to be able to be truthful and keep the organisation accountable. I've held one of those positions before. They are hard, but the organisation benefits in ways that they wouldn't imagine by creating a culturally safe space.
Ideally, 2 or 3 people in the organisation running that role would be stronger. Is it just when you say it's really hard space? Is it hard because you're just this one person?
Yeah,
you're the only
one person that you're working with the board and the CEO. But I did work at one organisation that was a national org, and every state had their own Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander working groups. So like little boards that sat in each state.
Yeah.
And then one person from each of those boards sat on the national Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander board. And we sat directly with the organisational national board. So that's like a whole other ball game altogether. But that's a really good way for raps to work, is to create those spaces for Aboriginal people to come in and actually have. And I hate people's like our voice being heard. It's like, well, we should just be a part of the conversation anyway. I don't know why it has to be a separated quote. But actually having us at the table when these decisions are being made, and that and we're able to keep people in bigger paying jobs accountable to their rap or their commitments to our communities.
Open mic specialist, a new venture for you. You like that, didn't you?
I lost it when you said that before. I'm glad I was on mute.
Your drum kit not being in front of you must be a really strange feeling. One, we realised that you had no pants on behind the kit the whole time. Now you got to wear pants, and people can see you standing up. Pre-21s,
yeah, that was my pre-21s.
What's it been like doing some solo stuff and writing and being heard? You know, your voice, your writing, your guitar playing.
Yeah,
it's very exposing.
So, I mean, I've always done it in the back room of my house where no one can hear me. But it's something I've always been passionate about. I mean, again, I come from a punk and metal background. So for your mate to grab an acoustic guitar and start singing depressing songs, like, really, man? Come on now. You don't do that. We're tough. We're in hardcore bands. Like, you need to be that guy. But it was funny. Like, when I did that first open mic with you, Mob, I actually rang Denzel, Baker Boy. I was on the way in. I'm like, bros, so I've been giving you advice for 5 years. I need some advice from you. He's like, all right, what? I'm like, how the hell do we get up in front of 70,000 people and play music? He goes, what do you mean? So I'm going to play this open mic in front of anywhere between 0 and say 60 people.
Could be, yeah.
And I'm sweating my ass off. I don't know, I'm not even there yet. He goes, where are you? So I just pulled out of my driveway. He goes, you're not even there yet. I'm like, no. His advice to me was, you're an idiot. You're going to have fun, and remember, all the mob's going to be there. So you'll be okay. And I was okay. But it is beforehand, it was the most daunting and scary experience of my life. But then after, I haven't had that feeling after playing music in so long, because for the first time ever, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
and
I'm
it wasn't solo,
kid,
was it? You haven't done much. Have you done much solo stuff ever? It's always been in a team. It's always been in a band.
Always been a team. Yeah. Always been in a team.
So it's all you. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, I can walk into any band, any show, any size audience behind a kit, and that's just what I do. Yeah. I walk in, it's my job. I go in, I do what I have to do, and I walk off.
Yep.
Here, I had no idea what I was doing. Is my guitar tuned? how did the foldbacks work? It was like it was, but it took me back to when I was 16. It was all brand new again.
Yeah, so
which
good,
was
man.
which is really exciting.
It is, huh? It is, huh?
Whether I sound good or not, it's just exciting to have that feeling of I have no idea what I'm doing again, and I love that.
It's really crazy. Everyone's got this massive fear of singing in front of people, whether or not. I mean, if you do it quite often enough, I'm sure the nerves settle down a little bit. But I even sit next to Carissa and we were playing something on the radio, and I'm yelling my head off, and I'll like press pause on the radio quickly because I know she's about to sing a chorus. It's like, and I pause it, and it's dead silent. She's like, "Oh." We're in a car. We're in a car. Me and you. She's like, and she just can't do full gusto. You go up on a stage when your mouth hits that microphone and it comes back in your ears. It's whack. I credit to you. I always just sit there and look at you guys and it's very encouraging.
I had my first ever singing lesson last night.
Oh, how did it go?
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was different. So I walked in. He's like, "Okay, sing me something." I'm like, he goes, "No, a cappella. I need to hear your voice." I'm like, "What do you want me to sing?" He goes, "Just sing something."
Oh, that's the hardest thing to do.
I'm sitting there looking at my phone. I'm like, I can't remember the lyrics to any of my songs. I can't think of a song. I don't know what to do. So he shout out to Peter Vox. He's an absolute legend. He made me comfortable and took me through everything. And I've got a heap of sessions lined up with him. But he's amazing. He's worked with guys like the Butterfly Effect, and he's worked with Jimmy Kyle, Chasing Ghosts.
Cool.
He's worked with some serious names, so I'm in very good company with him.
That's going to be brilliant, man. It's going to be brilliant to see the fruits of your labour. Hey, Benny, we've got to roll on. I've got a new track here. Before I go, there was a few more comments coming up. I admire this guy, truly I do, but I still personally know people in organisations who still behind the scenes have non-Indigenous people who are resisting doing a rap for their business, and I also know organisations where the non-Indigenous staff have not changed their attitude but pretend the organisation is culturally effective and culturally safe and pretend they are on board. It's a common scene. We see it. Squiz, thanks for inputting, Squiz too. Dark U3, who's that? Benny's the man. I hate it when people put their username as something completely unrelated to any name. I get very scared that I'm being led to saying something like crass because we get a few bots on here and it's like Rubber Slayer or something. You're like, oh, whoops. Oh, I didn't mean to say Rubber Slayer. Yeah. It's like the Mo, Bart Simpson calling up Mo and making him say stupid stuff. Dark you, though someone knows you on there. Tell us who it is before Benny heads off. Hey, Benny, we got a new track out today by your man, Dally.
Well, Dallas has a new track out and Baker Boy has a new track out today.
Today. We're going to play them both in this next set. Two people that you know extremely well. This first one might have a little bit of language. I haven't heard it. It says explicit on this. I don't know how much swearing. Have you heard it yet?
There's not a whole lot.
Okay, good. So, FYI, it's a PG-rated show. That means, hey, kids, don't follow everything that you hear on this show unless your parents say it's good or not.
Don't listen to Uncle Dally. He doesn't know the right way. Again. There's
a new one from Dally and Kian, and then we'll play, hopefully Baker Boys is online already too. Man, we unpacked a fair bit in this 30 minutes, Braz, and I appreciate you getting up nice and early and kicking off the morning with me.
Always a pleasure. I'm going to go get on that boxing bag now.
Yeah, mate. Get out some... Get it all out. Incredible work you do, Braz, and thanks for your time, man.
Thank you, Russ. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Benny Clark, the man behind Yenna Werna. It is an organisation, a channel that he wants to aspire and educate through a list of services that will make some serious change. He's been in the community space for a lot longer than most of us would even imagine doing anything for that long. But he's been in a heavy load, high stress, high impact mental space, people with some serious trauma, and has come out the other side with a real positive look on life. Certainly, he loves a challenge, not just through his work, but also through music. You may see him around when tours start happening again. He'll be the dude standing on top of his drum seat to Mariana, but he's at the back on the drums and does some incredible stuff on tour with Baker Boy and also Dallas Woods. Thank you so much, Benny Clark, for joining us today and being our special 7:30 guest. If you did miss the interview, you can grab a hold of it through our socials on our website, reallygookradio.com.au. It also gets uploaded to our IG channel and also our Facebook pages. Please give them a follow if you are not following us on social media. Please just go to Instagram and Facebook and look up Really Good Radio and follow us there. A lot of the information that's the channels that we need to tell you information about upcoming interviews, about past interviews, but also if I'm running late. But it's our information channel. So please take a moment to follow those channels so we can continue the conversation outside of the show. This is a show 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. coming up at 8:30. Daily Dollop of Daz, as always. And what a beautiful, he's a beautiful man. I love Benny. One of those dudes that he commands attention, whether you like it or not, too, which is the space that he's in there. You know, he's not afraid. It can be quite tiring, but he's not afraid to say the truth. But also probably also has one of the biggest hearts, and as a First Nations man, he represents us very well in the spaces that he works in. As we talked about, a new song from Dallas Woods. It literally got released today. It's got a language warning. Hopefully it's not too language. It's got rap in it. But it's with the impeccable woman, Kian, who opened up Black Stage on Tuesday, and we played her track Better Things yesterday. This is a new one. Fresh track alert. It is none other than Dallas Woods featuring Khan. It's got released today. This is called Stranger. You're on Really Good Radio. It's 10 past 8.
Yeah. This that bad man energy. Brother, get your facts right. Cash rules everything around me, get your stacks right. Knowledge reigns supreme, got my head around the cream. If you ain't talking about the team, you and up, you'll be that time. Don't get this spitting, no written, yeah, I'm that nice. You heard about the boogeyman, I'm ill, yeah, I'm that guy. Propaganda, I'm black and white, I'm a panda. If I ain't standing beside you, my brother, that I can stand you facts. St. Patrick with the snakes, brother. Get the talking that talk, I'll make a snake hover. I give fake homies wings. You know it ain't over till they old lady sings. Sayonara, my brother, I'm bilingual. The rat race who chase something I don't buy into. Authentic, if I said it then I meant it. Cop the backlash, I meant it. If I said it, beginning and ended. Tuck your chain in my young homie training. Catch you by the train station, now they trading. Wish it was different, but youngins just never listen. Universally distracted, that's why they rap for their district. They see it in the pictures, they see it in their pigment. Gotta feel the piggyback, same time, fuck the pigs. To all the young brothers wanna make a couple dollars, got a couple customs, tell you that it ain't what it is. They sniffing all on that Charlie. Draw the line, fam, either that or line dance where they liable, so you gotta check the alignment where they draw the line at. The hop, skip, and jump.